Well, welcome everybody. As much as possible, I'd like to share information with you, but also have a chance to have some question and answer. So first off, I am thrilled to be connecting with you today. The plans we've made regarding reopening, both at the broader level and at our departmental and school level, is very exciting. And I know the faculty are fired up to see everybody return to classes, as am I. So it's great to be connecting with you. So the purposes of this meeting are threefold. First, I would like to notify and direct you to all of the resources that the university has created to inform their students, faculty and staff about the reopening. Second, I want to share more specifically information about our music, art, and theater modes of instruction, academic coursework, physical spaces, events, and SMAT specific policies that you need to be aware of. And then third, leaving some space at the end of our conversation for some questions and answers. So as you are aware, mid-April, the executive emergency management team, which I didn't even know existed at the time, quickly met and pivoted, and I was invited to be a part of that emergency management team. And that team quickly pivoted into what is now called our campus reopening task force. From that task force, we then split into 6 subcommittees, including risk mitigation, academics, employees, residential life, co-curricular activities, and communications. And each one of these subcommittees were and still are charged with a variety of tasks with 2 guiding principles in mind: the protection and overall health and safety and wellness of our students, faculty, and staff, as guided by the CDC and state and local protocols and other governing bodies for colleges and universities. And second, to deliver the highest quality academics and residential experience that we can within our available resources. I'd like to explain that of those subcommittees, both Julia Davids and I have been serving on the academic subcommittee and contributing to that conversation, as well Chad Eric Bergman in the theater department and myself have been sitting on the co-curricular team. And as well, I still serve on the larger campus reopening task force as well. So we've had a lot of representation in each of these committees from faculty, staff, administrators, and in some cases, students as well. So first off, I want to begin by reviewing some of the information and resources that the university has created to inform their students, faculty, and staff about this coming fall. So as you may already be aware, there have been several notifications that have been sent from the university to your North Park email addresses, and they've been archived and posted along with other resources on our fall 2020 website, which is found at northpark.edu. And actually, as we're reviewing these slides, the screen is live, so you can actually click on these links. They should be live on your screen. So feel free to do that and review the material as we go through it. So the Fall 2020 website is the first resource I want to share with you. It is a central hub where the university will be posting important information and updates. And I invite you to visit this site as needed for the most updated information. Second, the 4 training modules, which are also located on the Fall 2020 website, you can also click the words for training modules. It's a live link that will take you directly to the training modules. This is also located on the Fall 2020 website. And these modules were developed by our university nurse, as well as our head athletic trainer. Together, they have been interpreting and staying current with all matters related to COVID-19, including SMAT-related research or music-related research that I've been sharing with them and conversing with them about. And they have worked tirelessly and have really produced the lion's share of the materials that we see and the decisions that we're making. They're partnering with departments across campus, ensuring stringent disinfection procedures, addressing physical distancing strategies in classrooms, offices, and high traffic areas. They're recommending treatments to our buildings for safe airflow in classrooms and offices in conjunction with our physical plant, and consulting with department leaders on risk mitigation and other planning specific to their individual areas and needs. They've been extremely invaluable to the process and invaluable to myself and the faculty in consultation and helping us formulate informed decisions, of which you'll hear some about during this presentation. So the first module I'd like to call your attention to is an overview of the virus. It talks about how the virus spreads, symptoms you should be familiar with, etc. The second module focuses on general risk mitigation strategies that are being taken across campus. And it also talks about the shared community responsibility that we will be embarking on, and a agreement that students can sign called the Viking Shield. And that's an agreement that you will be upholding the standards for this shared community responsibility as the semester begins. The third module points out key findings by OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, as well as important information about PPE, which is personal protective equipment. And Module 4 talks about screening tools and how to contact health services, and information about isolation, quarantine, and then contact tracing. And when it is safe, if you are infected, to then again return to be around others, and when it's safe to be around others. If you haven't already completed these modules, I highly encourage you to do so. They are open to all faculty and staff and students. And then at the end, please sign the Viking Shield. Again, it's a promise to abide by these policies set forth by the university as we enter into a time of shared community responsibility. Third, also posted on our website as of last night, I'm very excited to tell you that there's a really succinct presentation outlining safety, campus healthcare, academics, residential, and campus life, and communications. And this presentation was given by members of our campus reopening task force. And it was fantastic. I watched the whole thing last night. And last but not least, I've also been updating in a more casual way on our SMAT Facebook page. So if you have an opportunity to add or like the Facebook page, you'll be able to stay current with some of those updates. So let's dive in to the meat and potatoes of what to expect for the fall. What are we going to expect as far as academics? So first of all, I want to share some statistics with you. At the SMAT, for SMAT, School of Music, Art, and Theater, both undergraduate and graduate, we have a total of 133 courses that will be offered this fall term. And of those 133 courses, 31% will be fully online, 25% will be face-to-face, and 44% will be hybrid. In the graduate music area only, there is a total of 24 courses to be offered, 17% fully online, 25% face-to-face, and 58% hybrid. So let's talk about how this unfolds. In music, applied instruction will be hybrid unless accommodations have been requested by either the instructor or the student. 100% of the instruction that will take place online, of course, will be via a video conferencing platform. But for the instructors and students that haven't asked for accommodations, the goal will be to complete the 15 lessons with 1/3 of the lessons face-to-face or in person on campus, and 2/3 of the lessons using a virtual conferencing platform. Ensembles will be hybrid, and more details will come on that later in the presentation. And core musicianship courses will be offered in a variety of modes, ranging from fully online for oral skills, face-to-face for music history and literature 1, and other combinations. In art, history courses will vary, as some courses will be completely online and others in a hybrid format or face-to-face. For example, Art 2017, Early Modern Art History, has a larger group of students. So they'll be split into groups using both of their meeting days on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and others will have the option to engage with the material either remotely, in a synchronous or asynchronous manner. Studio classes for the art department will be de-densified, and class periods will be mindful of length. For one instructor in particular, Nana Okore, who just completed a year-long sabbatical in Australia, she'll be teaching online and focusing on using materials that can be found in the students' homes to create art projects. Finally, in theater, the Chicago Theater Experience is a course that's being built by Chad Eric Bergman, the chair of the theater department, and it's being built online with required virtual attendance of shows produced in the Chicago area. As well, theater will be engaging in some face-to-face instruction as it relates to their productions this semester, which again we'll hear more about in a moment. It's important as we embark in the fall semester to take note of the mode of instructional delivery that will be used for each of the courses in your schedule. Please be alert to communications from each of your professors in order to understand fully what your responsibilities are and expectations. In a normal semester, this may take a week or two to get used to your schedule and how the flow of your day or week may be. But in this particular term, you're always going to be required to be constantly aware of your timing and where and when you are supposed to be where you're supposed to be. So let's talk a little bit about physical spaces. The risk mitigation team, again, worked very closely with our areas to evaluate our spaces on campus. And in each building, there was an approximate 30% or more reduction to each one of our spaces to accommodate for appropriate physical distancing in the classroom. For music, specifically in Hanson Hall, recognizable changes have been made to the lobby, as you see pictured on the left-hand side of your screen, and H2O2 on the far right-hand side of your screen. It was recommended that cloth furniture be removed and replaced with items that could be easily wiped down to mitigate risk. As well, music and art in Wilson Hall, you'll notice some de-densification in each of the classrooms and again, the removal of furniture. For example, Wilson 21, just to give an example of the de-densification, in Wilson 21, which is normally used for art history and music theory and oral skills classes, the cap is normally 30, and now the cap will be 11. And in Wilson 24, primarily used for music classes, as you know, will now have a cap of 8. So you'll see the chairs displayed and also the barrier on Mary Jean's office for her protection, again, to remind us of that social, physical distancing. For theater, because of their academic coursework, which will primarily be online, they will be utilizing a studio on Foster Avenue as a temporary home base for their 2 fall shows, which again we'll hear about in a few minutes. As well, throughout all of the SMAT facilities, you'll notice hand sanitizer dispensers in each classroom, studio, and practice rooms, as well as in high traffic areas. Paper towel dispensers will be installed and spray bottles will be available. So we can all contribute to our shared community responsibility and keep one another healthy and safe. Now on to events. In music, as previously mentioned, all ensembles will be delivered in a hybrid format with ensemble rehearsals both virtual and face-to-face. For all face-to-face elements, physical distance and masking will be required at all times. As well, specific PPE items that have been purchased, such as special singers' masks, movable plexiglass shields, and Windsorb spit catchers for trumpets, to name a few, will be utilized as needed. Ensembles will utilize the posted class scheduled days and times for rehearsals. However, in keeping with the most current research available to us, which comes out daily, directors will divide students into small groups or sectionals, 10 or less, to reduce the number of students in the room at one time, and use smaller rehearsal time frames, 30 minutes or less, with spaced ventilation intervals of 30 minutes or more in between sessions to allow for greater distance between students in the small space. All concerts will be delivered as live streamed events or prepared as a recording for later viewing. More specifically, the university choir, women's chorale, and chamber singers will take place primarily in a hybrid format, utilizing all modes of instruction. And within those modes, the focus will be skill development, vocal technique, and applied sight reading skills. The creation of virtual performances will be done, and the intersection of arts and social concerns will be a focus as well. For events for our choirs, the goal is to have at least one virtual event for university choir, chamber singers, and women's chorale that is recorded and released, plus pieces that will contribute to an overall recorded virtual release of a festival of lessons and carols. The gospel choir will focus on learning and virtually recording 5 pieces to be integrated into chapel and college life services, as well as a festival of lessons and carols. And the gospel choir, touring ensemble, and band will resume meeting in the spring semester. University Ministries worship team ensembles will create virtual content to be used weekly in chapel services and college life, and rehearsals will be shaped by content and contribute to monthly themes, heavily utilizing Canvas, our learning management system, to post recordings of parts so that students can learn their pieces and contribute virtually. Finally, performances for opera workshop will be captured as audio recordings with performers lip-syncing videos to create a fully produced music video. Our instrumental and chamber music ensembles, for example, University Orchestra, plans to meet as a string ensemble only. The fall concert will be recorded and released for online viewing, and orchestra will also prepare a video to contribute to our annual festival of lessons and carols. Concert band and jazz ensemble will meet in small groups in Hamming, and concerts will be recorded and released for online viewing. Chamber music is uniquely set up in small groups already, as well as jazz combo. So rehearsals will take place in large spaces with masks and appropriate physical distance, and it can operate fairly close to normal. Groups will be 4 or fewer, and performances may be recorded and released for online viewing. The art department plans to proceed with their exhibits in the Carlson Tower Gallery as planned. One exhibition will be of quarantine projects, that is, artworks that artists have created during the pandemic. Artworks will be shown virtually using monitors that can be viewed through the windows of the gallery. Another exhibition will feature works of North Park alumna Rachel Lindsay, who just completed her Master of Fine Arts at the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana. It will take place in the gallery as well, and an installation can be viewed through the window of the gallery, and an outdoor installation will also be a component, with installations across campus. Gallery director Tim Lowley also plans to create a downloadable PDF of the exhibition so they can be virtually viewed. The theater department will have 2 productions this fall, Project 24 and their fall show. For Project 24, you may have seen in city parks the use of chalk to create physical distancing circles. Well, with the audience sitting in pre-marked circles on the hump, theater plans to have a performance from the balcony of LHA And you can see barely pictured there in between the trees on either side, there is a small balcony that will be utilized. And how creative is that? For the fall show, the theater department will be partnering with Chicago-based Manual Cinema, which was just featured in a New York Times article. And they will conduct a workshop and help to produce a cinematic puppet production. So again, very creative. Some specific safety policies that you should be aware of for the music department include some practice room policies. There will be 2 new practice room policies for this fall. The first is that students will be required to sign out practice room time, and practice room time will be limited to 1-hour time frames with a minimum of 30 minutes in between each practice room use. Second, students must clean the practice room when entering according to the posted guidelines. Applied lessons have a policy as well. All face-to-face lessons must be 30 minutes or less and utilize a large space. Mary Jean will coordinate with applied instructors to be sure that there is a 30-minute or more time period of ventilation in between each use for safety reasons. In a nutshell, that's what we are planning for this fall. So I welcome questions based on the materials that I've shared with you.
I do have a couple questions for you, Dr. Ryan.
Sure, go ahead, Gabe.
So, my first one is about instrumentalists. Even though I'm not one, it's just a question that I was reading through the International Coalition of Performing Arts Aerosol Study Round 2 this morning, and it said that brass and woodwind instruments are recommended both to have both bell screens and play through masks. And I heard you say that the trumpets were going to use screens on their bells, but would that be implemented across all woodwinds or just trumpets? And are they going to be required to play through masks?
Very good question. Thank you for that. I am familiar with that study that came out last week, I believe on August 6th or 7th. Again, it's a preliminary study. And we are taking that information and determining the appropriate PPE. Already, we have mandated that all players need to wear masks. And from that study, as you saw, it was recommended that a surgical mask is used with a small slit to allow for the trumpet player, brass, woodwind player to access their instrument, of course. In addition, we purchased some movable plexiglass shields, which can be placed in front of the bell of the horn. At this point in time, we're still exploring any bell covers, but it is our intention to have no more than 10 people in Hamming Hall for a rehearsal, and that those 10 people will rehearse a maximum of 30 minutes, and then the space will need to be ventilated for 30 minutes in between each session. So to answer your question in a short way, yes, we are still exploring covers. There's also been some information about the type of covers and whether the effectiveness of those covers. So we're trying to find the right solution.
Gotcha. And then my second question is for the larger ensembles, since we're going a hybrid approach to like choirs and things like that, are we going to do any outdoor rehearsing, like under a tent or anything like that? Or is that something that's still being explored?
Yes. The short answer is yes to your question. More specifically, Dr. Davids, our Director of Choral Activities, is planning to meet outside as a whole group just to talk and to see each other. Masks will be worn during those sessions. There may be some singing included in those sessions, and if so, of course, adequate social and physical distance will be used. As far as actual full rehearsals as we sort of are familiar with them, they probably won't be as long. And if we are outside students may be asked to split up into smaller groups. But yes, we will leverage our outside spaces, our green spaces on campus as well.
And then one final question. So for ensemble rehearsal with masks, it was like there was a lot of importance that was put on a well-fitted mask in the study. Is there a specific kind of mask that is recommended for singers by the music department, or that you've seen elsewhere that's like especially effective? Something that we like would be we should probably look at purchasing, because I'm worried that, like, as cute as the North Park masks are, I don't know how effective they would be for singing at actually preventing spread and stuff like that.
Yes, Gabe, thank you. To your point, North Park has purchased branded North Park masks that are blue, and those will be given to students in a welcome care package, as well as a branded thermometer, so you can do your self-check every morning. But more specifically, in regard to your question, the department has purchased the singers masks, which I'm holding right here. These are masks that were produced by the Broadway Relief Project, and we've purchased them for all singers that are in the choirs, and any student that has a primary instrument of voice, and non-majors that are participating in the choirs as well. And I have demoed this mask myself personally. The straps are adjustable. It is a very well-fitting mask, as it comes under the chin and over the nose appropriately. So I firmly believe this is a very good purchase, and our students will be singing in these masks. And they'll be given to you. We're buying them.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you so much for the succinct answers.
Yes.
To these nagging questions.
Oh, that is fine, Gabe. Thank you. Good questions. Are there other questions?
Hi. Yeah, I got a couple questions too.
Yeah, Jackie.
So mine more relate to like Hanson and practice room usage.
Mm-hmm.
So for starters, I watched the town hall meeting yesterday and they talked about the campus clear and needing to show like the physical proof that, hey, I logged my systems, I'm clear to interact on campus. Will there be any of that? Because I know Hanson, a lot of people are coming in to use practice rooms, and I guess people are checking based off my understanding when we come into class. But are we going to have to do any of that to use like practice rooms, or just be in the facility?
That's a great question, Jackie. Thank you for mentioning Campus Clear. That is an app that will be rolled out. And if you haven't watched the town hall, it has a nice description of that app and how you can download it and use it. Campus Clear is an app that allows you to facilitate your self-screen in the morning, take your temperature, and notate any symptoms or absence of symptoms that you might be having. And then on the screen, it will either tell you green, smiley face, you're good to go, or red, no, you should seek a consultation perhaps with someone on our staff of health services. And yes, we are requiring students to complete the self-assessment every morning and show it as they enter a classroom. So that will be a precaution that we'll be using. With regard to spaces on campus that already require you to show your ID, you'll also need to show the campus app and that you're good to go. But for right now, we don't have a monitor coming into Hanson, so it will definitely be on the honor system with regard to practice room access. But if you're starting your day with an oral skills class or starting your day on campus, likely you've shown that pass at some point during the day. And it is date stamped as well, so you can't just take a screenshot of it and then use it for a whole week.
Okay, got it. Another question. So you said we're gonna have to schedule our times for practice rooms. Is how far in advance can we schedule times? And then second part of that question is, there's 30 minutes after usage. Say someone was to sign up at noon for the max time of 1 hour. Something happens, they leave halfway through. Does that 30 minutes start like at the end of the scheduled time, or how does all that work? Like, say I saw that person leave, do I just have to wait that half hour and fill in? If I'm scheduled, I could go in early, or what's going on there? with that?
That's a really good question, and it's going to take a certain amount of nuancing. I think for all our safety protocols that we have, it's best to stick to the schedule. So even if somebody does leave early, that means the room is going to air out longer than originally planned. But I think as much as possible, for everybody's clarity, we need to stick to the schedule that's on the door. Mary Jean will be working hard to create these slots that you can sign up for with the times blocked off that are 30 minutes in between for proper ventilation. And those will be available. We're talking on Friday. We will likely be posting that information sometime next week and then sending out an announcement of the hours for Hanson and some of these other protocols that we'd like students to keep in mind. Good questions.
Okay, and I guess that you kind of mentioned what my last question was going to be about, which was the Hanson hours. Were there going to be any adjustments to that? Either A, shorter, I know a lot of places are shortening their hours, versus B, extending just from a practice room usage standpoint. I know I personally live on campus, I'm already here, so practice rooms are the only place I can actually physically practice my instrument. And with the whole time slot, there's a lot less, especially if people are using it throughout the day. So I just got concerned of, okay, less hours, more hours, if there's any thoughts on that, even if you don't have a solid answer yet.
I have a solid answer, Jackie. Our time that Hanson will be open will be the same exact hours as in previous semesters. As you mentioned, we need to maximize our space as much as possible because we're allowing for that 30-minute ventilation period in between space use. So our hours will remain the same, which I believe are sometime in the morning, but I know they go till midnight. So hours of the building will remain the same.
Okay, thank you. That's all I got.
You bet. Thanks, Jackie. Other questions? These are really good questions. Jackie, I thought you were going to ask me about flute masks.
I figured something like that would come up when it does, and I already have that fear I'm going to be sticking it through the side of any frickin' mask, so I kind of don't want to know the answer right now.
I've been talking with Dr. Huntington as well as Dr. Lill about possible solutions. There's a variety of experiments that are going on out there. I'm sure you've seen some recordings. So we're still in conversation. Dr. Huntington did say she received a pattern for a mask specifically for flute. And I think she's quite apt at maybe preparing something like that. So she may be offering something personally. There's also the wind defender that we have discussed. And if appropriate, we can make purchases as needed. So that's a little bit in flux yet, but we do have something in mind, whether it's initially a slit or playing behind the mask or, you know, pursuing one of these handmade masks or the wind defender or a combination of both. We're thinking about you.
Bring a plastic bubble, just sit in it.
And then we do have those plastic movable plexiglass shields that we can place in between flute players if needed or at the end of the instrument too.
Your mention of instructors reminded me of this, but I was just thinking I am now signed up as of like a couple days ago because I asked to be for 2 credit lessons for my voice lesson and for my coaching. Mm-hmm. So how will that work since we can only meet with instructors for 30 minutes at a time?
That's a great question. So for instructors that don't have a request for accommodations and students as well, those lessons that are 2 credits and meet for 1 hour will need to be split up into 30-minute intervals. So that may mean that your in-person lessons, instead of having 5 of them, 5 1 credit, you'll have 6 1 credit lessons, and they'll each be 30 minutes long. Another solution would be to meet with the instructor face-to-face for 30 minutes, and then maybe you go to a practice room, separate from the instructor, and continue the additional 30 minutes. You're in the same building, but it's less face-to-face. It's separated. Again, our goal is to have 1/3 of the lessons face-to-face. So I realize that is an ambitious goal, especially given the nature of the ventilation period and everything. So we'll begin to nuance that as time goes along, and I encourage applied instructors to use their applied music record to notate the mode in which the lesson took place. So again, our goal is to have 1/3 of the lessons face-to-face, and in the case of an hour, you'll have twice as many lessons.
Awesome. And then at the end of last semester for juries, we all, had juries that were a little bit different than we've ever probably had before. In this semester, are we looking at different options, or have we decided on having remote juries or in-person juries? Or is that something that's still in process?
Great question. The faculty have given their feedback regarding the jury process, and because our semester is ending early, the day before Thanksgiving on Wednesday, November 25th, we will have virtual or recorded juries required. All of this will be in Canvas. The student will fill out a jury form in Canvas a week prior, and then they will be required to submit their recorded jury by December 4th. In the case where a student needs an instrument or needs accommodations to have a face-to-face jury for whatever reason, you can petition or apply to your area supervisor and to myself to have permission, but you have to do so by the end of Quad A to ask permission for a face-to-face jury. So I'm thinking of pianists, for example, if they don't have access to an instrument at their home or off campus, that they could use the North Park facilities to create their jury recording. But again, students and instructors need to be thinking ahead about that, because if they need to use our facilities to complete their jury, they need to do it prior to November 25th. But for everyone else that's completing a virtual jury, the deadline will be December 4th, and everything will be in Canvas. Good question. Very good question. Other questions?
I really am trying to leave room for other people, but if there are no other questions, I have more.
Go ahead.
I emailed yourself, Annie Picard, and Dr. Kim probably a week or so ago about how our master's level pedagogy would work. And I just looked on the self-service portal and saw that it was a fully online course. Is there any news on that, or is that something that Annie and the students taking the course are going to discuss in the coming days?
I know Dr. Picard has shared a preliminary plan with me about her plans for that class. So I would touch base with her. As you know, CPS announced that they will be fully remote starting the semester. So our access to public school students who might be taking these lessons as pedagogy students is a little bit more complicated. So Dr. Picard, I think, is planning to leverage some virtual platforms for that class, but it would be best to check with her.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure, Darius.
For lockers, I remember we didn't hand in our locker combinations to Mary Jean. Is it still there, or we have to return them? We have to return them back ourselves.
Mary Jean, I'm going to hand that one over to you.
Okay, so if you had a locker and a lock at the end of last semester, or actually in March when we left campus,
yeah,
your locker and your lock are still there,
okay.
And you will continue to use the same lock and the same locker. If you had emptied out your locker and no longer have one and left the lock open for me to collect, then you can still use a North Park locker, but you need to bring your own lock, and then you need to communicate with me on which locker you're using.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Another question, how will the virtual event recording be released? And how will that work out? Will we still be having performances and that we record?
That's a great question. So there's two different types of recording modes that we're going to be using. The first is sort of the crowdsourcing model that you've been seeing on YouTube, examples of pixels of people all over the screen singing pieces. So that would be an entirely virtual creation of a piece. And depending on your ensemble, that may be one mode of recording your performance. Other options for recording performances would include recording using an outside professional who would come into Anderson Chapel. Students would be adequately physically distanced, perhaps in fewer numbers or in smaller groups. And then we would ask the professional then to commingle those pieces so that we could put together a larger display performance. And that's primarily the mode we're going to be creating the Festival of Lessons and Carols. So the recording will be live in Anderson, of course, quickly with space in between. And, you know, we've got to be in and out. Everybody's got masks on and all of that. And then a professional will create a, you know, beautiful version at the end. And that's what we're planning for Festival of Lessons and Carols.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yes. So a combination of both.
Okay, and another question. For pieces before, even though they're given to us, will it be on canvas so we could kind of print them out, or we go to Hanson and get the pieces ourselves?
That's a good question. I would, and you're talking about choir now, right,
Yeah.
Darius? Okay.
Yeah.
I would consult with Dr. Davids on how she's managing the music aspect of things, whether it's going to be paper copies or uploaded, you know, copyright approved postings on Canvas or whatnot. I think it'd be best to ask her that.
Okay, thank you.
But we'll get you the music for sure.
Thank you.
Yep. Other questions?
Oh, another question.
Go ahead, Darius.
What would graduation be like for December and in May?
We have yet to see what those events will look like.
Okay.
I think it's still very much a fluid situation. And I know one thing that came out in our emergency management, I'm sorry, it's now the campus reopening task force. One thing that came out this morning in that meeting is that we have to be adaptable as we move through the fall semester and as information and the virus moves throughout our communities. We are going to be turning to our local and state officials with regard to guidance, whether we're going to be in phase 4 or phase 3. We will follow all those protocols. And that may be the determining factor in some of these large events. So we just have to remain nimble and responsive.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep. Gabe?
I have a question more about general instruction.
Sure.
I watched the 4 videos on the safe campus procedures and things like that. Will instructors still be allowed to wear a face shield instead of a mask, or is that in addition to, or are all instructors going to be asked to wear masks at this point? Just for like general instruction, not necessarily for applied voice or musical instruction.
Good question, Gabe. And I'm glad you asked that. It sort of piggybacks on what I was talking about with Darius, is that this is a very fluid, moving situation. The CDC actually came out with a recommendation that face shields were enough protection, but they since changed that advisory, and now North Park is requiring a mask at all times. So if a face shield is being used, the only two reasons an instructor would take off their mask would be because they have some sort of asthma or breathing health challenges, or if they had a student in their class that needed accommodations because they read lips of their instructor. In all other cases, instructors should wear masks, and then if they are wearing a face shield, it must be accompanied by a face mask.
Okay.
Very good questions, you guys. Other things you can think of?
Oh, okay, kind of going off what you were saying about masks taking off and then some people reading lips.
Yes.
I know as we're going into a year where we don't know what's going to happen, when's going to happen, there's a lot of online components, in components, hybrid, and all of the fancy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
For example, someone like myself, I'm a very visual person. I do watch the lips, I do watch the hand gestures, and I love the presentations, but I don't qualify for accommodations. So I wasn't sure, has there been any talk about professors making some of maybe presentations to go along instead of just, I know some people go up and talk and they have it all planned and it's brilliant and usually it's okay, but with the additional challenges of masks, have there been discussion on these other components just to accommodate for that in general? If that makes sense.
It does, Jackie, and I understand what you're talking about, because I'm sure we've all experienced those occasions where we're smiling under our mask and that body language isn't translating in what we are trying to communicate. And that is definitely going to be one of the challenges in our environment. And I think to your question, the experience is going to vary by instructor. But I do know that campus-wide, instructors are preparing for not only synchronous and asynchronous modes of instruction, but also creating as much content in Canvas as possible, whether that be documents or recordings. So in the case that you're having trouble in understanding an instructor in a live face-to-face format, if additional resources are necessary for you to gain and absorb the material, it would be perfectly appropriate to say, can you make a quick video to put that on Canvas for me so that I can, read your lips and see your facial expressions. And many professors I've been talking to, in fact, I was just talking with Kelly Vanderbrug in art yesterday. She said I was on campus making a video of a drawing demonstration. So in those cases, instructors are making videos of their lectures and posting them as supplemental instructional materials for their students to interact with.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? These are all fantastic questions. Who's excited about the theater productions this fall? I am. I'm going to reserve my circle on the hump. Maybe they'll ask me to come on stage, which will be the balcony of LHA. I have to hand it to the faculty. They have been incredible partners along this journey. They are creative. They have a can-do attitude. And I, in most cases, have needed to put the reins on and say, wait a minute, let's consider how safe that is. They've been just such willing, creative partners in this entire process. And kudos to them. You are surrounded by consummate professionals who will help lead us through these challenging times. And along the way, be examples for us as to how we can think into the future and pivot and accommodate and be the best educators and best individuals in a variety of forms and platforms in educational environments. So kudos to them for focusing on what we can do, not necessarily what we can't do during this time, and to keep in mind the safety and risk mitigation strategies. They are very excited to engage with you, as am I and our staff. And one thing in closing as well that I just want to reiterate, this semester especially, communication will be of the utmost importance. So as much as possible, be checking your North Park email address every day. Check your Canvas accounts every day. Canvas, again, is our learning management system. If we can keep on top of all of our communications, and don't forget the good old-fashioned telephone. I know in many cases we think everything has to be a video conference, but we can also interact via the good old-fashioned telephone. If we keep these lines of communication open, we're going to have a very successful semester. And I trust that the spring semester will bring new information, and our planning for that has already begun as well through the Campus Reopening Task Force. I thank everybody for joining us today. And if you do have questions beyond this meeting, please feel free to email myself or Mary Jean or Karen, and we will bring those questions to the forefront and find answers for you. Again, we are hoping for a very successful and exciting semester. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.